You ready, Dave?
Sam's always banging on the windshield. Bottle of tequila in one hand and his dick in the other.
This guy, because there's so much I don't like about Dave. There really is. I mean, I'm telling you straight up.
Are you guys talking? Can you define talk? Can you define get along?
Fucking asshole, somebody get this guy, I'm gonna kill him.
If you need a dose of VH, get a taste of the closest thing. Romeo Delight, the ultimate Van Halen tribute band, playing all the hits from the David Lee Roth era, first classic 6 albums, plus deep cuts, some of which have never been played live before by the band. They even throw in popular tracks from the Sammy Hagar era and solo hits. The most viewed Van Halen tribute band on YouTube, Romeo Delight, doing customized recreations of staging, instruments, and costumes from the classic Van Halen era. They even perform entire Van Halen albums in sequence. Romeo Delight plays theaters, casinos, summer indoor and outdoor festivals, and special events. They're also available for private parties. To contact them, call Bud Blanche at 215-704-5144. That's 215-704-5144. Or via email at sonicparade1@yahoo.com. Romeo Delight, the ultimate Van Halen tribute band.
Hey, this is Greg Renoff, the author of Van Halen Rising and the authorized autobiography of Van Halen producer Ted Templeman, and you are listening to the Dave and Dave Unchained podcast.
Need a laugh? Check out the Funny How Comedy Podcast, which focuses on upbeat conversations with legendary comedians. It's free on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out on Facebook at Funny How Comedy Podcast, on Twitter at Funny How Podcast, on Instagram at Funny How Comedy Podcast, or email us at funnyhowcomedypodcast@gmail.com.
Run-ins and conflicts are par for the course in rock and roll.
We waste a lot of money with the extra guys we got to have to mediate. We could cut out $100,000 a week off this tour easy, but we don't trust each other, David and I. So,
I'm sure the Benny Goodmans and the Glenn Millers slugged it out, much in the same vein.
I have my own sound man, I have my own monitor man, and I have my own lighting designer. And Dave has his own guys, too. I don't see why anyone needs 7 security guards on this planet. Britney Spears has 2.
All right, Dave, you know what time it is. What the fuck?
I got nothing.
You're doing this again? Jesus God. Wow.
I know, sorry, I can't sing. I can't,
he's low, guys. He's low because
I know.
I've lost.
I know, it's the quarantine. It sucked the creativity right out of me.
Oh, my God. Well, it's time for the mailbag. I'm just going to sub something in here because Mr. fucking Green Jeans over here can't get shit together.
I know. I got nothing.
So let it here. I'll fake it through. Ready? That's right, Dave. It's mailbag time again. Well, at least if I answer myself as Dave, it's still correct.
That's right.
Well, you know what? Because you don't come up with your portion, maybe we're just going to have to make these letters a little extra long. Maybe we're going to have to really extend them. And this is going to be the deluxe version here. So,
would you like me to read the mail this time?
No, you're not reading the mail because you'll fall asleep by letter 2. And, and let me tell you something. You're getting punished right out the bat because you know what we're starting with?
What are we starting with?
Starting with a what if right off the bat from Dave Moses. And he says, if Van Halen did an album with Mike, how much of a better experience do you feel the vocals would be with him in the mix? Also, I know it's outdated, but I feel the 80s wet sound, the reverb and delay, would be great if Ed used it more and tried not to sound so modern and dry. How would these tweaks take us closer to vintage Van Halen? P.S. I learned a lot about Valance on your last amazing podcast. Thanks a lot for that. Mike Frazier, on the other hand, I'm not sure what I learned from him personally, except he didn't remember much, and everyone in the band was very nice. God bless and hats off to him. Thanks. The fourth Dave Moses. Well, Mr. Moses, what can I say? It looks like we are entering into an episode of What If? Now it's time for What If with Dave and Dave. Shit, what if? What if? Dave Marconi's favorite segment, What If? What if, motherfucker?
I don't do what ifs.
Well, of course, I would say that, yes, that would certainly make it more vintage Van Halen without a bit of a doubt, that's for sure. You know, to have Mike in the band, you got that background vocal sound, you got his bass licks, that's definitely, but the wet sound is definitely key. I'm all for the wet sound. What about you, Dave? You like the 80s wet sound?
It's their classic sound. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and for Mikey on background vocals, I mean, that's not even up for debate.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. You know, you and I, we like that album a lot. So I really don't have a lot to complain about.
No
but
problem.
yeah, the weak point was the lack of those beautiful Michael Anthony harmonies. It can only help.
Yeah. I also think the key would be to bring back Don Landy and Ted Templeman as the engineer and producer on the album. Put it on Warner Brothers and let Dave do the press. That's what you're really getting old school vintage Van Halen. If you really want to get vintage Dave, you let Noel Monk manage. Woo!
Yeah, but you know what? Sometimes you just can't go home again.
Sober up! That's right, that's right.
That's all, folks.
Well, we are on to letter number 2, and it is coming from Johnny Van Rogers. And he says, "Hi, I am a first-time emailer, and I have been listening for probably 3 years plus. I love what you're doing. Van Halen is a band with a lot of downtime. And when you guys interview somebody who does artwork for a Van Halen album cover, I would normally think that might be boring, but it's the most fascinating stuff, and I love it all. One of you, Daves, puts in way more legwork, obviously, and I like the yin and yang of your co-hosting partnership. From what I remember about Balance, number 1, Amsterdam lyrics were more about Eddie's sobriety and that he had a young son, Wolfgang, and the lyrics were about Sammy's love for the Mary Jane. Pre-internet, of course, and that's what I remember. Not Enough is a beautiful and amazing song, and it's reminiscent of a Journey-style song. Crossing Over is good, not great. I think it was left off the album for that reason, but I do love how it has that awesome ending. Thanks you guys for pointing that out. Strung Out was horrible, and Doing Time could have been way better for a proper Alex Van Halen representation. And I know you guys hate long emails, but I hope you guys take the time to read this because I love, love, love what you guys do. Please continue your great work, and I will continue to send you my very favorite Van Halen memories. P.S. I loved your Bart Walsh interview. Awesome stuff, R.I.P. And I saw David Lee Roth in Oakland last month. Best DLR performance by far since Oakland 2007. Johnny Van Rogers from California. And he lets us know that he's 45 years old. Okay, well, Johnny, that is a lot of words. Thank you so much for those kind words about the podcast. We are always happy to hear the love, and we do it for you guys, so thank you so much. Regarding Amsterdam, I think that song was mainly about experiencing the wildness of that city, right, Dave? Didn't you get that feeling? That was the whole kind of vibe with Amsterdam?
Yeah, I thought it was all about how, I mean, wasn't Sam saying, like, that's what the song was about? It's
Yeah.
a great city, and you can get almost anything you want that you shouldn't be able to.
Right.
And that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. You could buy drugs, you could get sex, you could buy sex. I mean, it's like literally legal there. Prostitution.
Right, yeah, I'm not sure where he's coming from that he thinks it's about Wolfgang.
Yeah.
Sammy's love for the Mary Jane. I definitely think there's some of that in there.
Yeah. All right, so Not Enough. Very good call on calling it Journey-esque. It almost has a When You Loved a Woman vibe to it, that's for sure. Crossing Over, I respectfully disagree on that. I think it's a great song, and I'm glad you appreciate the end a little more, so that's cool. Strung Out, horrible. I totally agree. Doing Time, I couldn't agree more that it could have been epic, and it really wasn't. David Lee Roth has been delivering huge these days. Best since 2007. Wow, that's very high praise. But I'm glad you enjoyed and got to see him for sure. Glad you liked the Bart Walsh interview. And there's more good stuff coming, guys. Dave and I have been working hard on a lot of different cool interviews, and we're not going to mention them because we want to leave it for a surprise for you guys. But lots of good stuff. Anything else you want to add, Dave?
I will add that you definitely do most of the legwork, and you are the heart and soul of this podcast. Once again, I say I am Andrew Ridgely, and you are George Michael.
Oh, that means I'm dead and gay. Okay.
Well, that's not the way I was thinking it, but
That's
if that's how you want to take it, you be that way.
That's okay. I'm
But
kidding
you definitely
around.
put in a lot into the podcast, and I thank you for that.
I'm happy to do it. I'm literally here mainly to keep Dave awake during the mailbag.
Thank you for your self-sacrifice. That's awfully
my
big
main
of you.
goal. My main goal is to keep him engaged, to answer his cranky texts. We have gotten to the point where he needs an old man schedule. So what I do is, like a nurse administering pills, I now send him schedule updates and reminders as to when things are happening, because we all know the man's getting old, so I have to...
I need it. I need it. All right, stop stalling and keep reading the mail. Come on. I gotta go to bed soon.
He's cranky. Letter number 3 comes from Eric Torbeck, our buddy from Vegas, who we hung out with at Cabo Wabo. He says, hey, guys, hope your health a little bit, and it ain't much of Van Halen news, but if you check out the John Taffer podcast from April 2nd, Guy Fieri was his guest, and he shared a few stories about Sammy, and Guy talked about how he and Sam developed their new tequila brand, and how they met for the first time before he was a TV star, and John shared a story about how he worked on a United States Cabo Wabo location that ended up not happening due to a Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. Stay safe, Eric Torbeck. And it's funny that he mentions that because we met Eric and hung out with him at a Cabo Wabo. That's when we were in Vegas. Eric's a really super nice guy. Yes, I did listen to that. Eric, thank you so much for the tip. I listened to it because of your tip. I wouldn't have known it otherwise. So thank you for that. I have met Guy Fieri, believe it or not, and I found him to be a delightful guy. He's very much like Sam. Very upbeat, funny, on the balls of his feet, like really kind of funny and fast and really kind of good energy. It's almost like he's like Sammy's younger brother. That's almost what he's like. It's really kind of funny. The two of them almost like the same person. I tell you, there's two guys you want to hang out with. It's those two guys, because between the eating and the drinking and the rock and roll, you got everything all together.
That's right. That's right, for sure.
Yeah, and so both positive people, and like the saying goes, birds of a feather drink together. So those two are definitely fun. Dave, did you hear the podcast?
No, I didn't get a chance to listen to it.
It's definitely worth checking out. The podcast is the John Taffer podcast, and that is definitely something to check out. Letter number 4 comes from John Shell, okay? And he says, hi, Dave and Dave, longtime listener, first-time writer. Thanks for the podcast. I was listening to the Mailbag on April 2020 show, and I thought I'd share my thoughts on the keyboard version of Right Now. The keyboard solo that kind of sounds like a church organ. If you listen carefully, you can hear the keyboard throughout much of the original song, specifically the second part of each verse and chorus. Dave, you were wondering why it sounded so distant in the mix. I don't think it was ever meant to be a solo at all. I think it was always supposed to be part of the background. It sounds exactly like the keyboard that plays as Sammy starts singing, all the things you get, the more you want. So when they decided, for whatever reason, to do a guitar solo-less version, they either turn up the background keyboard during the guitar solo section, which they had turned down completely in the original mix, or they possibly cut and spliced that part from the verse for the new solo. My guess is it was a quick fix where the band was trying to make the record company happy. Just a hunch. And he calls himself Midwest John. Which is kind of funny. He's a personal friend of Midwest Ron, the one who mentioned the original version on radio way back. And he says, P.S., speaking of alternative versions of Van Halen songs with additional keyboards, I am not sure if you mentioned this on your podcast, but there is an official remix of Secrets available on 45 RPM record that has an incredible subtle keyboard part in the background. Also an added section of background vocals. I digitized this and try to make it sound as good as possible. Enjoy, John Shell. So now, John, the church organ is how I described it myself. It really had that kind of vibe to it, for sure. but the background was brought to the forefront. But why? So to remove an Eddie Van Halen guitar solo, it's the best part of the song, which is so weird to me. But what I think it was is, I think the song was a remix to be a crossover track so it could be played on softer stations. Very often they do that to get like a hit on triple format. So if it's like a rock hit and then a pop hit, and then it gets to be like crossover to even like a softer, like a light FM type thing, if I can play something like that. Maybe they did a mix with the keyboards on the solo so it didn't sound so rock.